Hello and welcome to this first episode to this podcast. My name is Rogelio Rolando Ruiz, and today I'm here to talk about this podcast and our first chapter. My podcast is called Market Voices of Africa, and thank you for being here. This podcast is really simple, and my mission is slow. I really want to talk about the continent Africa and in more a clear way. So today I want you to talk about something very important. A regional market and an organization called the African Continental Free Trade Area that they are making a lot of changes. They are making a lot of decisions that they are changing the mood in which Africa is moving, and they are improving. So in this first chapter I am going to tell you a general introduction about this big project. So the African Continental Free Trade Area, or AFCTA, is a big project. This project is changing the business in Africa and in general the lives of so many people. But first I want to tell you why I choose this organization, and more clearly why I choose to talk about Africa. So one of the things that really caught my attention is how we as a society always are telling how Africa is bad, and when people talk about Africa, they only mention things about poverty and social issues and a lot of disagreements, and how they are an undeveloped country. And why I choose Africa, why this topic, and why this podcast. So let's start. I decided to focus on Africa because many people talk about Europe, many people talk about United States, many people talk about Asia, but there is no people to talk about Africa. I think Africa is really important. Africa is young and is growing fast, most as we think. Africa has these ideas. Africa has like this empowerment to really increase, and Africa wants people and childhood and youth to better life conditions, and in general a better future. Also, one of the reasons because I choose Africa is because new markets are growing here. Many people think that Africa is not a good continent to really have like these new markets, but they are changing this idea that we have, that they are the lowest of the lowest. So as I mentioned, many people talk about other continents, but Africa is the present, and also I choose Africa because we need like these new voices that talk about Africa. We need new stories, we need to understand new regions that we don't know, and I want to share in general these stories to you. And I want to show that Africa is not only a poor country, that they don't have investment, resources, or social goods, or other type of things. Okay, so Africa is a big continent. They have 65 countries, and these countries have different language, and also they have a lot of languages, and they also have different histories and cultures. So, but many countries work together now, and for many years, African countries trade with Europe, and they trade with China, and they trade with United States also, but they did not trade a lot with each other. Think this situation as an example. For example, a product for Kenya, for example. A product for Kenya can go easy to Europe, but it's not the same as, for example, if a product go inside for Tanzania or Uganda. You know why? Because trade inside Africa is really complicated, and there's a lot of barriers, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of taxes, and in general the business in Africa is really slow because the goods are really expensive for them. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is a very important trade agreement because it includes almost every single country in Africa, and they are making decisions to improve. They are mainly focusing on three main goals. The first one is to remove these trade barriers. As I mentioned to you, export a product to Africa is really complicated because all of these agreements and all of these like barriers that they have. So this is their first goal, and I think that it's its main goal. Because this means that fewer taxes and fewer problems are borders. The second one is to move goods more easily. Also, this is really important because this means that the companies can send their products more easily, and they can move their products from an African country to grower faster. And the other one that also it is really important is to create a big African market. One market with more than 1 billion people, one market that they have their African products, and one market with African companies. Think that this is really powerful, and this is really new, and this is a great advance to Africa, because think this as an example. For example, if the products from China can go to Kenya, or for example the South Africa can sell the products to Egypt, and people, for example, from Senegal, they can change and they can sell their products to Ethiopia. So this creates a lot of jobs. This create more jobs. That I think this is the principal main goal in Africa, to create more jobs to also people, and to stop like this social barrier that we have in our minds, that only there's like young people trafficking and young people employment. You know that this can change the future from Africa, and this also create new industries and new routes, and they build this African strength with African cooperation between each country. So I think this also for me is really important, because comparing other continents, we can say that they are more advanced because they trade between countries. But in Africa is really different, because they sell their products to another continent, but then the other continent sell to other continent. So we can say that Africa is not benefiting at all, because they are not making their own market in their own area and in their own like goods and tariffs, and that they need to build this social system to create more mobility, but in specific countries and in their own area. What I already mentioned about labor and youth employment is really important, because this AFCFTA is important because in Africa they are growing fast, but also they are growing fast because most of the population of Africa is really young people. So more people are working and more people have more access to jobs, and they are starting to have like this pressure and more people working in general. So more people are starting business, and more people are creating products and services. That also, for me, I think that's really beautiful, because we have this idea in mind that people in Africa, they don't have access to work, and of course there are regions that they are really poor and they have a lot of restrictions, but this initiative is becoming a strategy, and that's one of the main key that I want to say, that a big market helps Africa to grow together, and it helps countries to work as a team. As I mentioned, they need to increase their market, but between them, of course, when they grow up, they can sell their products to another continent, to another country, and this became like this a chain between countries, but they mainly are focusing their priorities. So it helps the companies to be stronger also, and because when countries trade with each other, they also can learn with each other, because how can you can make decisions, can make this status without knowing the other partner. That they need to make strategies, they need to make agreements, they need to make these like these treaties to other countries to really starting to increase, because they also can share ideas, because Africa can change ideas to maybe Europe, Africa can change ideas to maybe America, to United States, to China, and for example they can benefit to other markets and to other countries. For example, they can have more opportunities, they share opportunities, they share technology. Think, for example, if supposedly China share their ideas and their technology to Africa, this can be this can be a really benefit to Africa, because they share knowledge and they share opportunities for all of people. So this regional market can also reduce prices. That is really important, because in Africa, of course, there are problems. The food can also be cheaper for all of the families that they need to access to food. Also, it can make the transport like more accessible to people, and I think that is really important. They can they can find their products if they starting to create a new products more easily. All of the population benefits, because think that, for example, if more young people and more youthful are working and they start to share this knowledge and ideas, the population in their country, in their continent, which is Africa, they can also find products more easily. They can find food, they can find, I don't know, another services that they want, and necessities for all the people. And also this helps to everyone, not only a company. It's a benefit to others, and as I mentioned before, it's like a chain between other companies. And it also helps the small businesses. That, for example, when I was researching about Africa, I found out that there are small businesses, but they are working. And also, of course, it helps also the farmers, because I think it is really important to talk about the farmers, because they are the main center of work, and that their products go to every part of the world. So they can also be a benefit for all. If Africa really wants to improve, and other companies and other countries start to share their ideas, also the farmers can improve with them, because they can improve their products, they can improve the way in which they work, to be more, not to be really exhausting for them. Of course, they need to be working, but to start a better life conditions to everyone, because also I think mental health is a really important topic that we need to talk about in Africa. So it helps also young people who want to start to work, because that the education in Africa is a really big problem. Talking about education, I remember that that's one of the main goals of the Sustainable Development Goals that I was researching, and they are also improving in that sector, but that sector is not as prioritized as I think that this organization is going to be interested in. So of course there's a lot of situations that ambitions that is a new feature for Africa. And finally, in this podcast, I am going to mention the improvements and how these regional markets are improving the life conditions of each region in Africa. For example, in East Africa, West Africa, North Africa, and Southern Africa, and how this organization connects them all to all improve. Thank you for listening to this first chapter of my podcast. This is only the start, because talking about Africa is really a complex topic. But step by step, we will understand it together. And see you on the next chapter. And remember that Africa is changing, and the world is watching how they are changing.